Hello to another installment of Front Seat to Climate Change. I'm your host, Dawar Butt. With me today is Syed Bulent Sohail, who is the managing partner at Sohail and Partners LLC. He's also the founder and current director for Karachi Center for Climate Change and the Vice Chancellor at Sohail University. Welcome to the show. Now, I know about your work very closely, especially in relation to carbon markets and climate finance. But I think to bring this from a very simplified angle for the audience, I think we need to first tell them what is climate finance and why does everyone keep on, especially as a Pakistani, our government keeps on emphasizing the role of climate finance. So I think that's where we should start. There's this constant narrative, as well as some of it is very realistic, some of it is based on our own vulnerability and needs, and some of this does seem a little excess. But climate finance, why did it actually start? Why does a country like us or other vulnerable countries need climate finance? And where do you see in year 2025 the whole international system really, is it doing enough for climate finance? So we can start it here and take it to more specifics.
So, climate finance is just like your body needs water to survive. Climate action needs money, of course. I think climate finance originated because of the loss and damage debate internationally. The principle that the Western world has caused the climate crisis due to their heavy emissions centuries upon centuries, and that they should pay for it. So I think that from that, this concept, I think, emerged, climate finance. And now I think, as you know, last COP, there was hardly any commitments given to the third world or to the South, global South, on reparations. However, a lot of emphasis was put on climate finance, especially from the private sector side. So they're trying to, I think, create a new stream of monetary financing system around climate, which is kind of diverting the attention from the principles that were established a few decades ago, that the reparations must be made by the developed world. So, but Pakistan needs to fix its highly vulnerable country. We have a very fragile ecosystem from the Himalayas down to Thatta, Indus Delta. We need to take stock on our own, how much in a tight spot we really are from a climate perspective. When there's winter, there's crisis. When there's spring, there's a crisis. When there's summer, there's a crisis. I think we need to take stock on how deep in the water we are in this area. And we need to have our own narrative rather than dictation from World Bank and IMF and ADB. You must do this, that, and the other. We need to have our own narrative based on our own science, our own geography, and then figure out how much money we need to fix it.
This is interesting because when you mentioned the IFIs, when we think about the number of dollars we need to do this, the number also comes from them. They come and tell us that you need 350 by 2030. It's not our calculation. We probably need a lot more, or we probably need to be more contextual that this money is required for this thing. And on the basis of that, we go internationally. But as you mentioned, the role of the international system in a way has been our primary dependency, that we see it from a lens of what they tell us you need, and they also organize the finance accordingly, figuring out that this project can be done in this year, this 20-year plan that World Bank has also come up with. So essentially, this is, I think, where there's a lot of confusion as well. That what is the narrative of Pakistan in all of this? Because we go with their narrative, and we also accept the solutions that they're providing. And this is where I think I know that you advised on the carbon market policy. You're also involved in discussions with state level institutions, including the State Bank, on climate finance. where do you think is the gap in these policies? I know there are sectors which are very successful, which have been very successful, without much government intervention. The whole solar net metering and solar off-site solar, all of it has been kind of very successful without much government influence going on into it. At the same time, we are now seeing the EV system picking up because there's clarity.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts that where should we take our narrative in climate finance, and where do you think are gaps which we need to do more in?
So I think what you mentioned in the beginning, Pakistan is suffering from balance of payment crisis, chronic, right? So the need for dollars is paramount for the government of Pakistan. I think everything else follows later. So that need kind of overrides the narrative on climate. It overrides sound policy making, deep research, deep thinking. I think that's it's like a sick person, on a drip. That's how Pakistan behaves. But a healthy person, would do deep research, would take time out, put a team together, put funds together, get universities, think tanks involved, pool in its national resources, whether it's institutions, organizations, or people, and do some thinking. So that has not been done, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And as you know, that pockets, it's been done in pockets. Like-minded people like yourself, myself, like Dawn, they're stepping into this void that the government itself has created. And I think we need to not give up on the government, of course not, because what is required is a collaboration, a whole of society approach. I think we need to encourage the government, guide the government that this is the next path, this is the right path, this is where we should take this narrative. I think a lot of deep thinking is required. And like you said, there's pockets of success. Of course there are. I mean, where a particular sector is regulated well, like State Bank is an extremely well-regulated sector. Solid people work there, educated people, progressive people, and they're the ones who created the renewables policy.
Exactly, yeah.
And that was well thought out, executed well, and it gave you results. Similarly, SECP is again another extremely well-regulated institution, and you'll see results there because these people do, they're well educated, well-staffed, funded organization. But then there are other sectors which are very poorly organized. For example, the environmental departments all across Pakistan. Although they have the technical know-how and they've been around since the 90s, but it's very poorly organized. I mean, at least my interaction, my understanding is across Pakistan, the environmental departments are very poorly organized. And you see this mismatch is causing so many issues. For example, ESG is being fronted by SECP. SECP's role is to create capital, to regulate capital, not to regulate the environment. SECP has not been able to, unfortunately, introduce Scope 1, Scope 2 or Scope 3 or ESG even, because I don't think it's their mandate. It's the mandate of the environmental departments to gather data, to gather the NEQs, to do the Scope 1. I mean, so I think deep thinking is seriously lacking in this country.
Yeah. And just for the benefit of everyone, I was recently pointed out in a conversation, I was presenting ESG and I was point blank asked, what is ESG? Why do you keep on saying ESG? So for the benefit of everyone, environment, social governance, or full form of ESG, these are metrics that businesses are supposed to track. For example, any big multinational is supposed to track as a mechanism of showing their economic and environmental impact on community and society. So Pakistan is actually moving in a direction that it wants Pakistani corporates, at least the listed companies, which are 500 or so, to start reporting it. And as Bulent was mentioning, that SECP has taken a leading role, while SECP as an institution probably does not have much institutional understanding and memory of environmental know-how on doing carbon accounting, but they've built it in a very few number of years, since 21 till now, just 4 years. And this is where EPDs, which have the bureaucratic inertia, should have stepped in and helped out, but we see very limited role for it. So I also see that, solar, for example, succeeded because of financial incentives. EVs is, gradually picking up again because of financial incentives. And once everyone, starts asking what are other things that we can do, there's a bunch of things in my mind. There's, for example, the whole idea that EVs reduce our import bill. There's another sector which is completely untapped, which is your biofuel sector. You have a gas shortage, you could have been getting biogas out of your, the example of Bhans Colony is given, that, it will generate gas for the Red Line metro in Karachi. But this could have been done 20 years ago, because Bhans Colony has been here since partition. It could have been done that you could have been generating gas, selling to industries, selling to households, but we have not done it. Similarly, we generate so much organic waste. Karachi has Jam Chakro, Lahore used to have Lakhoder, which is being converted to waste to energy. Yeah. All of our cities have that. So this is an untapped sector where the policy is, not there, so that's why no one wants to invest. So I do see that, for example, carbon market policy is now out and people want to experiment with it. These gaps exist, and our essential problem with the government has been that they're very slow, their learning curve is slow. And this is where I think the Karachi Center for Climate Change, for example, can come in, other research think tanks can come in. And what do you envisage, for example, to be doing while working with just, if we focus on Karachi and Sindh, what would be your number one priority item?
I think I would like the center to go towards really deep research on what is required, what Pakistan needs are, what is our weakness, what is our strengths. We need to come up with our own solutions for climate change. For example, you're the largest mangrove ecosystem in the world, right? That is your strength. That is an area where you can mitigate, where you can adapt by planting mangroves, improving the quality of the delta, desalination. I mean, these are real substantive goals that we should strive for our country. Forget carbon markets for a minute. And if you find your own responses to climate, your own niche, your own competitive advantage, I think carbon credits and carbon products will be a byproduct of that exercise. But I think we need to focus on, so my center is going to focus on these things, really simple, basic, look at the country, deeply look at the country, look at the crisis, and look at what the solutions are and how do we achieve those solutions.
I think one other thing, you've mentioned this informally a bunch of times, is that we also need to build credibility in the narrative and all the data that we put out. And I was discussing this with a business owner just yesterday, is that a lot of data that we report, such as industry that produces denim, for example, they report their numbers, that this is our carbon emission footprint, and of course buyer is interested in this data, but the buyer does not really think the data is credible. And same is probably going to be an issue when we get into the carbon markets, actually implementing them. So what would be the best way to actually fix this lack of trust as well?
Well, Pakistan is in the last in all the indices insofar as transparency is concerned. We're probably top 10 there as well, but that's something you have to live with. But like I said earlier, you have to use the best regulators to start these projects. I mean, for example, State Bank and SECP in Public-Private Partnership Authority. These are the three organizations, in my opinion, which can deliver you benchmarked results on, a carbon credit, a carbon offset project, a large carbon offset project. So these benchmarking needs to be done with the regulator. The regulator needs to be assisted by the private sector. Of course, as a regulator will be matched by a regulatee or a consortium of regulatees. They need to identify a particular sector, say EV or forestry or agri-waste, and they need to get the buy-in of the government of Pakistan, and create a benchmark structured product as a model. I think we get that one product right. I think that will set the trend and the tone of how future projects will be rolled out. So I think we should definitely get together the EV sector as a whole. They should be speaking to the State Bank as a group. First, they should form a body. If they haven't formed a proper body, they should do that ASAP. They should sponsor these initiatives, reach out to the State Bank, reach out to NICA, reach out to the Energy Ministry, and just get out of your silos and talk about where the sector is, where it can go, what are the financing needs, and what are the byproducts and outcomes from this whole exercise. And carbon credits will be one of them.
Yeah. So this brings me to my next question, which is essentially we have these successful regulators, we have some success stories, and sometimes we've been able to showcase it, but our narrative still heavily depends on that we are unsuccessful and we need more money to be successful. This is our narrative. But given that COP is also coming up, and internationally we do need to start selling a better narrative, which is that we are doing substantive work on ground, but at the same time we need more, maybe not money, but at least we need technology transfer. We need these public-private partnerships. We need these consortiums of local private sector working with international private sector, which is to an extent happening, especially within the EV sector and solar sector now. So what do we take this, what would we take abroad whenever we go to these conferences? What would be the ideal way? Because in many cases, for the past 2-3 years, you might have noticed as well, we take the same stories and then that's it. We speak about it, we have a couple of photos taken and we come back. And it's a lot of talk without limited improvement on ground. And substantively, we need to now showcase that we're doing this, but the next step is you come and work with us as well.
Look, I've been to COP, you've been to COP. In fact, I stayed the whole 14 days last time just to absorb. And our pavilion was really good. It was busy. We had one activity after the other, non-stop. But there's no direction, right? Ek hoti hai theme aapki. What's your theme? What's your narrative? And then you, to promote that theme narrative, you get a group of people together in Pakistan. You identify XYZ, government say, private sector say, and then send them to COP so that they promote that particular theme or objective. Not only in your pavilion, but in the rest of the pavilions too, and the side events. Pakistan had none of that. Just one after the other, sponsored, 1 hour, one or 2 hour showcasings. But there's no objectives, there's no theme set, and there was no team to promote those. It's just a mad race going from one session to the other session to the other session. So it all comes back again, there's really no thinking done at any level. Jo honi chahiye. The gravity of the situation is we're in the red. I mean, we're in deep trouble. The response is, I would say, is well-intentioned, but it's still not as serious. We're not mounting a serious response to this challenge. Like, for example, if you were going to send somebody to COP, how would you organize? Would you just have 30 different organizations randomly talking about climate? Or would you take your EV sector? Would you take your mangrove people? And all the success stories and the potential success stories. आप वहाँ उन लोगों को लेके जाएंगे ना, rather than showcasing random, whoever pays.
Basically, help us scale up, which are already successful, rather than do something brand new at COP, because that's how it works.
And then connect at COP with those
right
thematic
people,
events across, so you can create those cross-pollinate, not only ideas but also get financing from various sectors. One other area that we've not tapped at all, and we're so foolish, in my opinion, is China. China is incredible, doing wonders on climate. And technology transfer, they will give you technology
Yeah.
rather than any Western country. But we're not even speaking to them on climate. It's incredible. We've made planes together, but but on climate, unfortunately, that conversation isn't taking place with China.
Yeah.
I wish to see more events between Pakistan and China, and COP-like events for the global South. I hope Hamza Haroon and his V20 movement can set up a parallel kind of a COP for the global South, which I think Pakistan should lead along with China.
That's a very interesting idea. I have met someone who's involved with the China Institute, and they do have some partnership coming about between the Chinese Ministry of Environment and Ecology with the China Institute. But of course, you need to scale up it drastically. And I think one last point then, possibly, given our discussion on narrative, successes and gaps, I think it's also a discussion that really needs to now flow down to the provinces. Federal, we advise them, we look up to the federal government, of course, for, these are the ones with the resources, the know-how, and also some of your brightest ministers are simply in the federal or they're in the Senate, so they come to the federal government. In the provinces, this is the big issue. Punjab has this massive air pollution issue. Sindh has its polluted water and, constant bad solid waste management issue, which leads to a lot of other environmental problems. And similarly, KP now has this massive deforestation issue happening. You see the floods. The floods are basically bringing in chopped down wood. Those are the videos that come out of it. So in each of these provinces, we know that there is a dearth of leadership on environment, as well as a dearth of technical know-how on what to do. And we can simply, when someone asks what are the stories from Pakistan, the real stories are in the provinces, because that's the bigger part of geography. So how do we, bring this together? Does the federal government need to do more, or do we need some sort of coordination between the provinces and the federal? Where is this gap that you see, and what can be done to really resolve it?
Yeah, I think you've hit a very important point. Provinces are key, right? Environment is also a provincial subject. And most of these areas that the NDC departments, they're also mostly provincial subjects, other than transportation and highways, whatever. But I mean, agri is a provincial subject, forestry is provincial. आपका जो urban है, waste है, वो सारा provincial है. So I mean, the subject matter does lie in the provinces. I think the provinces lament that most of the funding, the donor funding and the technical capacity is unfairly lopsided, in favor of the federal government. I think they should be receiving a lot more capacity. I think the Brave project that's coming, UK ka, is addressing the provinces finally. But then again, provinces, why should provinces seek for handouts from the federal government? I mean, they're all in surplus.
Yes.
They're all surplus economies. They should create their own funding. They should utilize their own base. I mean, Sindh has a very thriving, for example, universities. Lots of universities in Sindh. Dow hai, NED hai, Aga Khan hai. There's no dearth of capacity building. But again, it comes down to niyat. It comes down to whether there's a political will around it. It's Punjab mein smog was an issue, became an election issue. Now there's a political will. It really boils down to whether the government wants to make it a priority agenda or not. Unfortunately, it takes us a disaster to make things proper again. I mean, put it in the limelight. But yeah, provinces need to get their act together. The environmental departments, the climate departments, they need to merge. I think they're doing this two different idaras in the same field. There needs to be some organizational changes. I think the environment department should be under the rules of business should be under the Chief Minister directly in the climate. That's extremely important. Should not be, just like the federal government may, the ministry in charge is the PM. Similarly, under the rules of business, the minister in charge should be the CM. And then the CMs need to sit together under either the Climate Change Act, federal government, or the Council of Common Interest, and make this a regular feature of discussion.
So, thank you for joining us. I think very thoughtful comments from your side, and happy to see some technical experts also experimenting and working together with academia, and hopefully we can sort it out, not soon, but
Inshallah.
in time, inshallah. Thank you for joining us and watching this episode. Stay tuned for more.